Well, hello, students. And today we're going to do a little bit of a reflection period on what we covered in this particular chapter. Chapter 7 was an important chapter. And the only thing that I didn't cover this week was learning objective 7-8. But I wanted to just use today's session as a summary of the week and see what we got out of it. And I could actually highlight some of what is in 7-8, but you won't necessarily be tested on that. But 7-8 essentially was learning how a supply chain strategy differs from traditional strategies for coordinating operations among firms. So when we talk about supply chains, we're talking about adding value through supply chains. So a supply chain are sometimes referred to as a value chain for any product is essentially the flow of information, materials, and services that start with raw materials, suppliers, and they continue through other stages in the network of firms until the product reaches the end user. The supply chain strategy is based on the idea that members of the chain working as a coordinated unit will gain competitive advantage. When we talk about supply chain management, commonly known as SCM, looks at the supply chain as a whole in order to improve the overall flow through a system composed of companies that are working together. Each of the chain's members gains competitive advantage in this situation. So what they've essentially done, okay, is they've re-engineered some of the supply chains for better results. The results often include lower costs, faster service, and the coordination of flows of information and materials. The thing about supply chains is that they are really important for when you need material, and also they use outsourcing in the strategy of paying suppliers and distributors to perform certain business processes or to provide needed materials or services. And we talked a lot about global outsourcing, and global outsourcing creates new operations jobs for supply chains. And sometimes there's a need for more or different types of employee training to understand it. But anyway, that's kind of the last thing that I wanted to cover, but I wanted to do a quick review of some of the things that we talked about in class throughout the week. And what I think you should really reflect on today is to be able to describe in your words the meaning and significance of business operations. What do we mean when we talk about operations? What does it encompass? What does it exclude? Some of the other things you might want to talk about are the major differences between goods production operations and service operations. And I know we spent a lot of time in this chapter talking about that. Service operations essentially focus on performance, process, and outcome, service characteristics, customer service links, and service quality considerations. Services are largely intangible. That means you can't really feel, touch, or smell them. They're intangible and they're more unstorable than physical goods, like customer service. And we talked about riding a metro, something like that. Goods production operation focuses on tangible product features and functions, as well as on the production processes themselves, including production efficiency. We also talked about the differences between high contact and low contact service systems, and we gave examples of those. Low contact systems, customers are not in contact with the service provider. In a high contact system, the service buyer must be present during the transaction. And examples will vary but should clearly demonstrate your understanding of the differences between the two. For example, McDonald's might be a high contact system, as Curry College might be. Low contacts might be harder to identify, but could include, say, cellular performers or your local pharmacy. You should be able to justify why the stated choice is low or high contact. So give that some thought. Also, we talked about the three forms of utility throughout this chapter. We talked about form utility, time utility, right, and place utility. Know those three. And we talked also about the five major categories of operations planning. You should know what they are. Okay, so that's kind of everything I think you need to know. And I want you to also reflect a little bit about if you were a member of a quality improvement team, a TQM, at Curry, what would be 5 specific high impact recommendations that you would support? And of those 5, which 2 would be the most important? And why would you think the provost might want to implement your recommendations or your department chair? But anyway, that's kind of it for the week. And I look forward to looking at, make sure you meet your deadlines for your DQs because they will turn off after the deadline date and you can't go in and do them. Remember, they're part of your grade, so make sure you pay attention to all of this. Thank you and have a great weekend. Professor DeChico.